Hey everyone, this is a joy expanding, anxiety reducing lessons from us from Inside Out 2. Actually, we're just going to have some discussions about what we thought of the movie, what we have questions about, and what it makes us think of for ourselves and how to think about our own selves and our own belief system.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think of the movie, Lily?
It was fun. It was so fun. I loved it. It was just like clever and easy watch. It was fun. And then it really made me think and made me cry a little bit.
Which part did you cry in?
I cried at the panic attack. I feel like that's the most basic part. But no, I think I cried after. I don't know. It was like the whole end.
The whole end, yeah.
The whole end, really.
There might be some spoiler alerts. We'll try not to do too much, but you mean like they're all hugging?
Yeah, when they hugged. Okay, yeah,
spoiler
this is a
alert.
spoiler alert.
They hug.
Spoiler, they hug.
They hug.
And Inside Out. Yeah.
There's a heartwarming moment at the end.
When the whole thing is gonna be a spoiler alert, I think. Like, what are we doing here?
Hopefully you've already seen the movie. If not, go watch the movie. I never mind
watch the movie
spoilers,
and then watch this.
But don't stop watching this.
Right.
Right. Don't stop watching us.
Right.
But I never mind spoilers, but some people get really hung up on them. Do you like spoilers?
Yeah, I don't like them.
Oh, I'm like, give them to me.
I like alerts. I don't like spoilers.
Okay. Good point. Okay, so kind of the premise of the movie for anyone who just was looking at it for the entertainment or hasn't seen it yet is this idea that our experiences, our thoughts, our memories create beliefs. And that beliefs, all the beliefs together are our belief system. And that belief system creates a sense of self. And following that as a therapist, I think that's pretty on, is that our experiences create beliefs, our beliefs create our belief system, and our belief system create our sense of self. So I really liked that, that basic understanding that was there. I don't know if that came through to everyone, but that is true. Our experiences cause us to have beliefs, whether they're true or not. We do create beliefs from our thoughts and from our experiences. And that's, I think, a really important thing that we should talk about tonight is how that happens in ways that aren't good for us and how that happens in ways that are good for us. I kind of went over that in the movie a bit.
Yeah.
But we've had some debates the last couple of days since we saw the movie. So we'll
been getting heated.
Been getting heated on Inside Out 2. Joy expanding, anxiety reducing debates. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I can't think of any of our debates right this moment. I have notes here, but okay. So one thing that we're kind of debating is how to develop a strong sense of self and like what is a sense of self? That's what you want to know.
Yeah, well, I just didn't understand what's a sense of self versus identity? Like, what is a sense of self?
Our sense of ourself, it's better if you say it the long way. Like, we have a sense of ourself, like an understanding of who we are and how we are in our position in the world. Like, so that's our sense of ourself. And really, we don't have much of a sense of a self outside relationships. So if you're really isolated, you have a very thin sense of yourself because all of our sense of ourselves is reflected to us off the people around us. So if you have really mean people around you, you also have a very shriveled sense of self because your reflection off everybody else is like mean stuff.
But what if your sense of self is like me? What if you're like, you can be mean and still have a good, like you can be like in it, not mean. What?
You could be mean and have a good sense of self. Mostly mean people. People are mean because they don't like themselves very much. Right. Yeah. So hurt people, or miserable people like overflow and hurt the people around them.
Yeah.
So people who are mean don't usually have a good sense of self. And so that goes back to belief systems, like in the movie, how that premise is that from their experiences in their lives, some things that happened to them, they created beliefs that they may be less than. So they're always trying to make up for that by trying to, kind of get control over other situations. They end up judging people or whatever, being mean.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's how it comes together. So a sense, the sense of ourself is how we see ourselves or how we understand ourselves. And it's closely related to identity. It's not too different, but our identity is like what we give value to. What's important to us ends up to be our identity. But sometimes if we have a lot of problems in our life, we get some negative identity conclusions. Like if you're really sad all the time, you say like, I'm depressed. It becomes part of your identity. Unfortunately, these negative stories as well. And that's not helpful at all. It's understandable, but it's really not helpful. It actually makes us feel worse.
But do you think so? In Riley's brain, in Inside Out too,
Inside Out too,
she has a sense of like, what is that thing that looks like a neuron? Is that what the is that even the right word?
In the movie, they have a sense of self.
Is that a sense of self, or is it identity? Like, is that actually who she is, or is that what she thinks she is? It's what she thinks she is because she said the whole thing.
There is no what actually somebody is. Everything is perception. So a person's identity or sense of themselves is all a perception that they might have that's ever changing, or perception of that person from somebody else that's always changing as well. So it's always, no one has an actual sense of self or an actual identity that's their truth. That is not, there's no one truth about somebody.
Oh, then I don't know what the difference between.
Okay.
Sorry.
So they have this mechanism that you said looks like what'd you call it?
A neuron, but I don't know if is that.
It's just like shiny and goes around, shiny and like a flower, but like a neon sign.
Neutron?
3D flower. That's what it looks like. Okay, so they have this thing and they're calling it her sense of self. That's what they're calling it. And so that's what I said about the premise of the movie is that experiences and thoughts and memories create beliefs, and the beliefs create a belief system, which then creates a sense of self. And when we're younger, if we haven't had trauma when we're younger, that sense of self is pretty clear. It's like there's a lot of joy. Hopefully, if people around you are telling you that you're really great, that's how it's supposed to work. It doesn't work for everybody that way, unfortunately. But then you feel a lot of joy and you feel really good about yourself. And then things start to get complicated when you go through puberty because you're becoming a more complex person. You understand new concepts, you're understanding your prefrontal cortex is developing. And so you're understanding a little bit more about foresight and planning for the future, and not having like immediate gratification, but doing something so you have better gratification later, kind of withholding that till it's working hard.
Because you know how when Joy is like, she's all sad and then she's like, oh, I guess when you get older, you don't experience joy as much or something. Because when I saw that, I was like, that's super sad, first of all. And number two, it's kind of true because no matter, like, it's true, not even in like a relatable sense where you're like sad when you're older, but it's true because you have more responsibilities, like you have more stuff. So it's less time to like play around. So it's like kind of sad. It's like, oh, then what is even the point? Like, why do we
grow up?
Yeah. Why do we grow up? But then what you just said about like the instant or versus delayed gratification is like when we get older,
when we're starting to become independent, we have to make those decisions for ourselves. And when we're younger, our parents get to make those decisions for us. So we don't have to worry about those like survival kind of decisions. But once we get older, there's this transitional period through like teenager time until young adult time where you're learning how to make these independent choices for survival. You didn't have to do that when you were younger. And our brain wasn't developed enough to do that when you're younger. And then there's this period of time where it's getting developed and not fully developed, that there's a lot of resistance to that. But, it was really unfortunate. I remember people used to tell my son, this is the best time of your life, when he was in high school. And I know I work with a lot of high school people, and it is not the best time of their life. I mean, you could maybe vouch for a lot of people. It's
always like, even in movies, like it's depicted as like the most embarrassing or something.
It's hard. I mean, being a teenager is very, very hard, especially right now. But there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things you have to navigate, and a lot of resistance to those things. But you have to do it anyway, and all this stuff. But It is not. If you are a teenager and people have told you that, don't worry about it. It definitely could get better than this, because he used to think like it gets worse than this. Like, why would I get older? If this is the best time of my life and this is this bad, like what are we looking forward to? But I want to say that that's why I always let people know that you could have joy forever, even though, yes, you have to make decisions, practical decisions for survival. And that means, you have to go to work to earn money to support yourself. That's what I mean. But you can definitely still have joy. Like, joy doesn't go away.
Well, that's what I was saying about the what was interesting about the delayed gratification, because like your joy becomes, it's more I feel like maybe it's more valued because it's intentional. And then when you delay the gratification, you're knowing that, like, oh, I have to pay the bills, but this is good. Like, it feels good when it's done, maybe, because then you don't, you're not gonna not like you're gonna be able to watch TV, or you're gonna like you pay those bills so that you can like live in a house or something, like, so you have that brings joy to you in your adult mind. So there is like different ways, like it's not just like miserable.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. If you get the jobs done and that means security in other places, or you've secured some of the opportunities or good things that you want.
So that you can experience joy in more, like you can watch whatever your shows, or you have free time to do your hobbies or something.
Or you don't have to worry about stuff, and they're deliberate.
Times of joy.
Exactly. So you could also have joy, spontaneous joy when you're older, and you could also have really fun relationships, and you could also do a lot of fun and creative things. There's a lot of ways you could bring joy into your life. It's not like just getting your chores done and you have joy. I don't want anyone to think that either. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, right. When you get the jobs done that you need to do, then it's such a relief. And a lot of times we have resistance, and that resistance is totally biological. I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again in case this is the first video you've watched of mine, is that our brain has two functions. One is to survive and thrive, and the other is to conserve calories, because we evolved through times when there wasn't food. We had to find food every day. Mm-hmm. And so our brain stops us from doing anything that we think we don't need this to survive today. And it puts this biological resistance. It makes us feel like, and what happens is the felt experience is, I don't feel like doing that. And we put meaning around that feeling, that there's a reason why I don't feel like doing that, or I'm lazy, or something's wrong with me, or I'm tired all the time. And we really question and wonder about this resistance, but it's the most natural thing. And we could override it with our mammalian brain and say, yeah, I want to do this. I'm fine. I have enough to eat if you do. And so that's important to recognize, is that we could see that as a problem, and we have a problem, or we could see that as that's resistance and we could override it. Mm-hmm. I know we're a little off the movie, yeah, but this is joy expanding, because to understand, because that really devastates people when they have that resistance and they think something's wrong with them. That really devastates people.
And it's kind of devastating in the movie too. But I feel like after we walked out or something, you said, or even in the movie, you were like, oh, and the part when Joy is being like called to the control center.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Because that's your favorite part.
Like, we could call joy to us. I love that.
And that's what happens when you're older. Well, I guess that's like the deliberateness of the joy. When you're older.
Yeah. Happy people, they have to generate their own happiness. There's not just happy people and then sad people, or happy people and anxious people, or people who have had, unlucky people or something. Happy people actually generate their own happiness every day. And they might be so used to it that it's like integrated and it doesn't look like it's that hard work. And so if you haven't done that and you have to do it, it feels unfair. It's like, why do I have to work so hard to be happy? No one else has to work that hard. But really, everybody has that resistance. And if you've overridden it and got used to overriding it, it does get easier, I promise you. But also, happy people generate their own happiness. They take action every day to bring happiness into their life. And it looks like getting rid of things that bother you, bringing in things that bring you joy, and practicing that every day. Like, you don't do it once, get rid of all the bad things in your life, because we're living in this world and things happen and we're getting information all the time. So we have to keep doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. If you're sad, you feel like, what did I do? Why am I so sad? And why did I do something wrong? But you could pull joy to you. You could but think about these emotions as personified. Actually, I always think of anxiety as personified. I love this idea, and it helps kids really externalize, because we internalize these emotions. We think they are a part of us. We think what they say is truth because we think it must mean something, right? And when anxiety lies to you and you realize it's anxiety and not yourself telling yourself a truth or protecting you, that's another thing we should mention. It makes it easier to separate yourself and your identity. Like, I'm not anxious. I have anxiety, right? I have anxiety. Anxiety affects me, instead of like, I'm an anxious person, or I have an anxious brain, or my brain's wired this way. That's something that people used to say, a metaphor people used to say that actually is not really true. Everybody has a sympathetic nervous system, so has that ability to release adrenaline. And getting in this process of having anxiety a lot. Sorry, I'm talking so much. I gotta let Lily talk, but
I don't have
getting into that, that it could happen to anybody, because having anxiety is so scary and so confusing and so mysterious, and you wonder why, that it makes you feel out of control, and it just kind of snowballs from there. And that really, I see, could happen to anybody. And it actually happens to a lot more people than you think.
Yeah, I mean, because anxiety is just like all for Riley. She thinks she is.
Yeah.
She's just
thinks she's helping Riley.
She's good. Like, she really is a good character in the TV. And she's not
like, she
good.
cares.
I know
she cares about Riley's happiness.
And like, but they depict it as like at the end when Joy is like, what are some things we can control? And then anxiety's like, Riley has a paper to
A test.
or a Spanish test. And she's like, oh, okay. Like, when I was watching that, I was like, oh yeah, there are some things that anxiety is good for. But then I feel like you've told me that there's nothing anxiety is good for. Because
should I tell him?
Yeah.
Say? Okay.
I guess
So the way I think about anxiety is it depends on how you define it. Because some people define it as like, sometimes it's helpful. I find that people want to hold on to it because they really believe that anxiety protects them. They really believe this lie, that anxiety protects them. And so it's really hard for them to let go of it. Why would you let go of something that protects you? So because they have so much trouble letting go of it, I've kind of redefined it as something that was totally not helpful at all. So it's a leftover fear response if you're not in physical danger. It's a leftover adrenaline response in your blood, like when the adrenaline's in your blood and all of those symptoms, when you are literally not in physical danger. I call that anxiety, so that we could say there's no need for it whatsoever, and we want to help it go away.
Because there's other things that like another person might define as also anxiety, but there's other things that are actually helpful in something like a Spanish test, where you're like, oh, an incentive to work, or like incentive.
Yeah, that's the worst, when anxiety
says,
says, if I got rid of my anxiety, you wouldn't be motivated. Like, if anxiety tells you, if you got rid of me, you wouldn't have any motivation. Anxiety gets in the way of motivation more than anything else. It's like such a crock, because if you didn't have anxiety, but you had will, right? You had want or desire. You knew cause and effect, and you knew that if you studied, then you got a better grade, right? So if we had work ethic, we wouldn't need anxiety to motivate us. But we've kind of lost work ethic, and that's the whole other issue. I talked about it last week in the episode with Jared and his mom. I talked about my theories on how we've lost this idea of cause and effect, which has totally spiraled our anxiety. But common sense makes you wear a helmet. You don't need anxiety to do that. We know a lot of stuff intuitively. Our bodies know, like, that feels like really risky. I'm not going to walk on that log over the water. I'll probably fall in. But if it's a really hot day and it's really shallow water, it doesn't matter. Like, we're making judgment calls all the time. It doesn't have to be anxiety to help us keep us safe. It could be other problem solving and common sense sort of things, assessing situations.
So to you, anxiety is just what'd you say, the leftover fear response when you don't need it anymore. Interesting.
Yeah.
But then,
It's
so
just
Inside
suffering.
Out doesn't really do that though, because Inside Out, everyone has it, and you need it a little bit. You need all of the emotions in Inside Out. So
yeah, I mean,
you
in
sort
some
of-
ways, we all have a sympathetic nervous system, and so we do have the adrenaline that's able to go, and we could call that a fear response. They already have fear; they have fear and anxiety in there, and I feel like fear is something that we need to survive. But when our sympathetic nervous system goes off, 98% of the time, like we're not actually in danger and don't need it. Um, so the anxiety is those 98% of the time where we're not in physical danger, we don't need it, but our brain is going, but you feel bad, so something must be wrong. Keep pumping those hormones out.
Yeah.
And then you feel more helpless because you're like, I don't know what's happening. This doesn't even make sense because I'm not in danger right now. I don't know what's happening. And that mysteriousness makes you feel helpless. It makes you feel more out of control, which perpetuates the anxiety, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've defined it like that, because the fear response is great. If you needed it, that'd be great. And also, like I have that script that I tell everybody. It's like, if you know you're safe, but you're feeling the adrenaline, acknowledge that it's that. It's not mysterious, it's adrenaline. And if you say, thanks, amygdala is that part of the brain that releases the adrenaline. I always say, thanks, amygdala. If I needed you, this would be great, but I don't need you right now. Right? I'm going to override it with my mammalian brain. And it's hard because you can't be scared of it. Like if you're scared or bothered by the anxiety, you're kicking off that. You're telling your amygdala, give me more. Give me more hormones. So it's a practice that I help. I mean, get my book, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. I'm sorry, it's a mirror. I couldn't turn off the mirror. And of course, I don't have the book in front of me right now.
It says, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You.
Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. You could click up into the cards up here and grab a copy of the book. I'll put it in there.
It's kind of a shame they made her character so likable.
The anxiety
she's like, I guess she was kind of evil for parts of it, but she was like, I mean, she was evil. Like, anxiety's not good, but she's just so lovable. Like,
I know, you kind of feel bad for her.
Yeah, you
it's
feel
like
bad.
I like the idea of like taming anxiety, like calming anxiety.
You know what
down.
got me in the panic attack is just like anxiety when she like was just frozen in fear. Like that was the part I was like, oh,
you get it.
Like it's just sad, kind of. Yeah, I don't know, because that's how it feels. Like you're just trapped, you know.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, I understand you, anxiety. No,
you can know. I mean, if it helps to think about it as a creature that's, pathetic and sad, and you need to tame and make feel better so it stays calm and doesn't get triggered, great. That's fine. I love it being a character because you could be like, get away from me, or something like that. But yeah, do we need it as one of our emotions? I don't think we need it. We need the fear, we need fear because it calls our attention. Like, is this something dangerous? And gets involved the prefrontal cortex so we could survive, right? It gets involved involuntary responses to that stimulus. And also we could see if there's no danger and then we could stop it, but it doesn't work so well. We have to do the heavy lifting on that one.
Yeah. Can we pivot to
Inside Out too?
Well, yeah, but that is what we were talking about before. So, to one thing that I disagreed with you about that we've talked about is that I don't understand why the memories she puts in the back of the brain need to be like part of her sense of self, because I feel like if I have a really embarrassing memory, that's fine being in the back of the brain. It doesn't need to be like who I am. Like, I feel like if something really embarrassing happens, it's like, that's not who I am. It was just a bad moment, So I didn't understand why they need to do that, because in the first movie, they already established that you need sadness. Like, you need all of the emotions. That makes sense to me. But I don't understand how you need all of your memories, like, as a part of you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know what was behind the writer's ideas, but this is kind of my take on it, is that if you have it's so Joy tries to banish any negative memory to the back of her brain so that she doesn't have to think about that, or that doesn't create a belief in her belief system. But by the end, Joy realizes that you need all of the memories, and they could all become part of your belief system, but there needs to be more of a balance. And I think the message was, and I don't know what they wanted to write, but I think the message was like, you don't have to be perfect, right? So not expecting yourself to be perfect. So in the beginning, when she's young and she has only good memories creating her belief system, the sense of self was like, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. And later, her sense of self had all of these different things about her. We're like, we're multi-storied. Our identity is not so thin as like one thing. I'm a good person, right? There's all these things that are part of us. And I like the idea of like, I'm not just a good person, like I'm a whole person. So yes, I have mistakes and they might create beliefs, but we actually, if we have this balance of knowing that we're basically good and having engaging, being able to engage our choices or learn from our mistakes and those kind of things, then we don't have to feel perfect, and that we have to like put ourselves on a pedestal and we can't fall off. We have to be perfect or else. So when you think you're just a good person and there's nowhere else to go, and if you do anything remotely wrong, it'll like knock you down, you know? And so a more robust sense of self is knowing that I'm imperfect, but that doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a whole person. I'm good. Um, and you know, not good in a dichotomy good. Good in is like whole good. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think maybe it's just turning into like maybe a movie critique, because I was just thinking like, I don't know. Then I don't know. That's not that important. But I guess just like, I feel like you can be a good person and have all of the other things and you're still a good person. But you think that that means that there's only good or bad.
Yeah, like could you be good? You could be good or bad.
So nothing is good.
But if all your memories come from good, bad, and benign memories and everything in the middle, then you realize that life has, like when you have a bad moment, you're not like devastated.
But
like
she
this is horrible.
This is the thing, is that she has bad memories. Like and this is where it gets into critiques, but like they have like long term. She only sends like the worst bad memories to the back of the brain. Anyways. So
yeah. I mean, yes.
But I see your point. You explained it well. Like
Yeah.
I understand how whole, no one's just like just good.
But this is the thing that we were going to come back to, what I said in the beginning, is that we could control what kind of beliefs come out of the experience. How we make meaning around the experience solidifies what the belief is, like what we believe. So if something bad happens to us and we think that we caused it somehow, that's the belief, is that we are not good at whatever, setting limits or whatever it was that happened to you, like that we somehow are unworthy of being treated good. And so we could create those kind of beliefs, which don't help our sense of self, right? Because they make us feel like we're worthless or hopeless or flawed. But if something bad happens to us and we say, that wasn't okay that happened, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And and that doesn't have to define me. And I'm going to find who I am by being around people who reflect back the good in me. Like it could be there, but we don't have to set like these negative truths about ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see.
So whatever happens to us, or even if we get an F on a test, or we hurt our friend by accident, hurt our friend's feelings because we were crabby that day or something like that. Like, yeah, you could feel guilty about it and you could restore the relationship. But if you get stuck in the guilt and you believe I'm a bad friend, and you create a belief out of that one event that makes you feel really bad about yourself, it'll affect how you act in the future. And you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like the sense of self is more 3D, instead of being just I'm a good person. It's like this more three-dimensional as we get older. Our brain is becoming, our concept development is becoming more three-dimensional. We're becoming more complex beings and really understanding the world a little bit more and seeing that foresight. So our sense of self does have to develop in these, three-dimensional ways. Unless there's like a trauma along the way, it does affect that, but we can also heal from that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a death sentence or life sentence.
Even though this happened to Riley in like 2 days.
Yes, and she recovered because Joy was on her side. And she had good friends that helped her.
And good family.
A lot of people don't have such a supportive family. But
yeah.
Yeah. And so if you're struggling, there is people out there. Look for an adult that you could trust. Look for a friend that you could trust, and let them know that you're struggling and you need somebody. Like, don't go through it alone. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're social beings.
Yeah.
And I like the movie too, because there's a sense of community, right? They all care and look out for each other inside your head and everything. So that's kind of so human.
Yeah, that's nice. It's fun to see the emotions, and like the original emotions are all like teamwork the whole movie, as opposed to the last movie. So that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have anger. Like, could we embrace all of ourselves? Like, could we embrace all of ourselves, the good and the bad and the ugly, and know that it's all human and it's all accepted? I think that's when we really become self-actualized, when we think all of it is included and all of it is whole.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're not like when we resist anger, we get more angry because we get mad that we're being oppressed for not being able to express our anger. And then it comes out sideways. And then we get embarrassed that it came out sideways. Like, it's so much worse. Like, just like people get angry.
I loved embarrassment.
Oh yeah. Embarrassment. So and ennui. There's a great addition. Yeah. So yeah, well, I don't see any comments, so I apologize if, there is comments. Keisha. Oh, thanks, Keisha. That's so nice. You've been listening. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm going to read all your comments. Yeah, bad memories create a learning process. Exactly. That's what you must have wrote that before we talked about it. Well, thanks, Keisha. I'm so happy that you're here, and everybody who watched this live. We're really grateful, but we're going to go so you don't have to keep listening to us. Though we could talk for a really long time, as you could see.
Yes.
Yes. All right. I'm going to put all right. Again, if you have any questions, give us a comment below, and we'll see you next week at 8:00.